Tonight on the Daily Debrief, R&B singer R. Kelly pleads not guilty, but must remain behind bars for now. And
I saw my son, back of his head explode out.
A father testifies about the killing of his son in what prosecutors say was a military love triangle. Plus, did a Georgia foster mother lie about her daughter's injuries? It's a case of accident or murder. Also, a verdict in the case of a Tennessee man accused of killing a 12-year-old. The Daily Debrief recaps the day in court. It's Tuesday, July 16th. Welcome to the Debrief, everybody. Jessica Ramirez, Linda Candy Bodden here. Eklund Mercy will be joining us just a moment from now. R&B singer R. Kelly will sit in jail awaiting trial on federal sex crimes charges. Prosecutors today argued that Kelly is a danger, especially to minor girls, and that he could obstruct justice by intimidating witnesses if he was released on bail. Kelly's lawyer unsuccessfully argued that Kelly is not a flight risk because he doesn't like to fly and doesn't have a lot of money. Kelly pleaded not guilty to the accusations against him. And now to the case of a Michigan woman charged with premeditated murder in a so-called case of a military love triangle. Kamiya Hassel is accused of encouraging her lover, Jeremy Cuellar, to murder her husband, Tyrone Hassel III. The victim's father described the night his son was shot and killed.
I saw my son, back of his head explode out, and his eyes were open. I looked at him to see where he was shot at, and I saw a hole right here, and the back of his head was just this big. I knew it at that point that my son wasn't gonna make it. I remember Kamiya trying to jump in the ambulance with him, but I grabbed her back.
Sir, after the murder, did Kamiya continue to stay at your house?
Yes.
Chunk stay there too?
Yes.
Did you guys meet with the police afterwards?
The very next morning.
At any time, did the defendant mention anything about Jeremy Cuellar?
No.
At any time, did she mention anything about her involvement in the murder of your son?
No.
Next, one of the first responding officers described the gory scene.
When I came on scene, I'd actually made my way along the passenger side of that car and come around to the front where I saw in a visual. Basically, he was sitting on the ground with his back up against the side of the car by the driver's door, head hanging down.
Did you notice injuries?
Yes.
What are the injuries that you noticed, sir?
The first thing I noticed was that he was obviously deceased. I could see brain matter on the ground. I could see that he had it coming out. He was bleeding profusely. He was obviously, I'm not a doctor, but it appeared that he was dead.
A paramedic said the defendant was there that night while he described treating the badly injured victim.
When we got him in the back of the ambulance, he still had a heartbeat. He wasn't breathing, however. We inserted a tube into his throat so he could breathe, established an IV with fluids, and transported to the ER.
Did he have any blood pressure at the time?
It was 60 over nothing, and by the time we got to the hospital, it was gone.
It was gone.
Yep.
Was it fatal, his wounds?
Yes, sir.
Did you try any other life-saving treatments?
After we got into the ER, they administered CPR and established more IVs and tried to resuscitate him.
Were they successful in doing that?
No, sir.
Was he eventually declared dead at the hospital?
Yes, sir.
Neighbors testified that someone, presumably the co-defendant, the lover, was casing the area where that shooting happened.
So you testified that a vehicle pulled up to the house across the street, is that
Right.
correct?
That's right.
Did you notice whether the vehicle pulled in or backed in?
He backed in.
What caused you to take notice of the vehicle that backed in across your street?
Well, I was sitting in my room watching TV, and I noticed a car was there, and he wasn't supposed to be there.
What do you mean? What do you mean he wasn't supposed to be there?
Well, I didn't know, because it was a rental place, for sale place,
You saw him get something out of the car. Whereabouts in the car?
in the back. Well, like 4-door. I'm presuming it was 4-door. The door behind behind the driver's seat. He got something and he left.
Where did he go?
He went south
On foot?
on foot.
The alleged plot unraveled when an officer questioned the defendant about her husband's death and about the man who is accused of pulling the trigger. At first, the defendant denied a relationship with the accused triggerman, then backtracked with this admission.
During the interview, she had indicated that she, in fact, knew Jeremy Cuellar better than she indicated originally, that she'd actually had was an ongoing relationship with him.
Now, initially, before she said that to Detective Longuski, did she deny again to Detective Longuski everything?
She did, yes.
All right. Did he confront her that he did not believe she was telling the truth?
He did,
Is that when she started to indicate, yes, we had a relationship?
yes.
Did she talk, just briefly, sir, again, we're not going to get too much into it, into the relationship with her husband and her happiness with that?
She did, stated that she was unhappy with her relationship with her husband. She stated that the actual plan to have Sergeant Hassel killed started in Korea
And when was it to be carried out?
when they were home on block leave.
And did she say any reasons for this plan?
Yeah, basically that her unhappiness with her husband, and she also indicated that there was a money aspect as well. To my understanding, if an active military personnel passes during their time during the time of their enlistment, there is it's basically a standard life insurance policy of a particular amount that gets issued.
Did the defendant receive a large sum of money?
Yes, it does.
What was the deposit for, sir?
$100,000.
The alleged triggerman had a friend in the military. That friend said the triggerman discussed the plot with him and said the defendant agreed that her husband needed to go.
Sir, there come a time in Korea when Jeremy Cuellar approached you about his relationship with the defendant, Kamiya Hassel.
Yes, it was a time.
Something that sticks out in your mind.
Yes.
Okay, can you tell the jury about that?
So he came to my room, basically just stating that Buddy has to go, and basically just saying that he wants to do it around block leave time.
So when he came to your room, do you know where he was coming from?
He said he was previously with Kamiya.
So he'd just been with the defendant?
Yes.
So you made a statement, he came to your room and said, Buddy's got to go?
Yes.
Was that his words?
Yes.
Okay. Who's Buddy?
He's referring to Mr. Hassel.
Sergeant Hassel?
Yes.
So he said, Buddy's got to go.
Yes.
Did you follow up with him on that?
Yes. I said, what do you mean? And he explained it. He basically explained Buddy has to go. Like he has to get done. He has to get rid of him.
He has to get rid of him.
Yes.
When you asked him whether or not Kamiya Hassel was involved in the planning of the murder of her husband, what did he say?
He said, I said, how do you know that's what she wants to do? He said, it's mutual, like it has to be done.
It's mutual.
Yes.
Okay. Did he ever give a different phrase beyond that in terms of whether or not she was in agreement with it?
It was just a mutual. Like,
It's
that's
mutual?
That's what we want to do.
That's what we want to do?
Yes.
Another friend from the service testified similarly.
Did the defendant and Jeremy Cuellar, were they friends?
Yes.
At some point, did it become more than friends?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the jury a little bit about that?
they had an affair going on in Korea.
And what do you mean by an affair, sir?
Two married people mess around.
Did you see this?
Yes.
Okay, were you asking me? Is that when did you see it?
The more we spent more time together, that's when I started to realize they had a relationship going on.
Okay. Did you ever see them together in the same room in the barracks?
Yes.
Did you ever see them in the same bed together?
Yes.
Did you see that more than once?
Yes.
How often, do you know?
No.
A lot?
Yes. Well, every time I was around.
Every time you were around them?
Off duty hours.
Okay, off-duty hours. What's off-duty hours then?
Whatever time you get off work.
And you don't know when that is, obviously.
No.
But in off-duty hours, when you're spending time in the barracks, were they together a lot?
Yeah, all three of us would be together.
And when all three of you together, did they appear to be affectionate with one another?
Behind closed doors, yes.
Okay. Why behind closed doors?
They don't want nobody to know what they had going on.
And yet another friend described how the victim reacted upon learning his wife, the defendant, was likely having an affair.
They were like walking next to each other, which seemed a little too close for comfort for me, from a married man. But, I just didn't want to push too much of an issue, because it's a fine line that I didn't want to cross and make it seem like I was trying to interfere or cause some damage towards their marriage. And there was a few times while I was in the medical center to get checked up that the two walked in together as well. And I told him and I approached him about it, and, I told him I wouldn't be a good friend to you if I didn't tell you, what was going on. Now, what he made of it is what he made of it.
How did he react?
The first instance, he picked up the phone and he called her right away. They had their little conversation. That was it. The second time, we were on a bus together and we was on our way back to the barracks from the gym, and he picked up the phone and he called her as well. He picked up the phone and he called her, and they had their conversation. Even though I can't say I wanted to tell him, no, bro, you're wrong. That was his wife, and I didn't want to interfere, but I just had to let him know, at least from a brother's perspective.
With us tonight to discuss this case are attorneys Jessica Ramirez, Linda Kenny Bodden, and Eklund Mercy. So, Eklund, I'll start with you. What do you make of the physical evidence in this case? Because to me, the evidence suggests this was cold and calculated. Am I right?
Yes, it was absolute. It was planned. They were young people, and they were young and dumb, and they thought their plan was foolproof. You saw testimony that they didn't want to do the murder on the barracks because it would be too difficult. So that's why they went off-site. This was absolutely planned. This was cold, calculated, and to add insult to injury, she even stayed with the victim's family 2 weeks after he was murdered.
But this is strong because usually I hear Eklund Mercy saying that she's defending the defendants here. So Jessica Ramirez, what do you make of one of the defense tactics here? Because one of the defense tactics is to basically blame the trigger man and say it was all the lover and that this defendant really shouldn't be legally bound. That seems like it's a legally weak tactic in my book.
I think so, especially now because she confessed, and that confession makes it very difficult for her now to blame that she had nothing to do with this, that it was all her lover's fault. There is a confession, which she gave a lot of detail. She corrects the officers. So it's a huge problem.
Exactly. I agree with that as well. Linda Kenny Bodden, the question is the confession good? We've got phrases here: unhappy with husband. Husband's got to go. It's mutual. I mean, these are the buzzwords I'm writing down as I listen to that testimony that we just played.
Right, but is the buzzwords related to the killing, or did she get thrown under the bus because the cops told her that her lover had said she planned this? And we were watching it earlier with a former police officer here, Kirk, who's on the show, and he said, look at the video, the confession. She's not saying much. The police officer's doing most of the talking first. So I think we have to wait and see. Right now, I'm inclined to vote guilty, but I'm going to wait for the evidence.
That seems to be the opinion many people have at this stage in the case, but the defense case is coming up and our minds may be changed. That's just the stage we're in right now. We'll be back to the panel at the end of the broadcast. Still ahead tonight here on The Debrief, 2 cases involving the tragic deaths of children. The first, a verdict against a man accused of killing a girl at home. The other case involving potential lies by a foster mother accused of killing the little girl in her care. Both of those cases are after this. A complicated verdict in the case of a Tennessee man accused of murdering a 12-year-old girl. Roy Coons Jr. was convicted of killing Joanna Arteaga. Arteaga was home from school when she texted her mother that someone was knocking on her door at 4:15 p.m. and that she thought the person knocking was the defendant who mowed the family's lawn. Joanna's mother found her dead 2.5 hours after that text. Here is the verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant Ronald Don Coons Jr. in count 1 guilty of second-degree murder. Count 2 felony murder guilty. Count
3. You're at count 3 now.
Count 3 now?
Yes.
Sorry. Count 3, second-degree murder. Count 4, guilty of attempted rape of a child. And count 5, guilty of aggravated criminal trespass habitation.
All right, is that your considered verdict?
Coons in prison for at least 51 years. Formal sentencing will occur in September. During the case, the state used DNA evidence to link the defendant to the scene. Witnesses also testified that the defendant talked about whether killers could be forgiven. And now to the trial of a Georgia couple accused of murdering their 2-year-old foster child. Joseph and Jennifer Rosenbaum face a mix of murder and other charges related to the death of Layla Marie Daniel. Authorities say the little girl died from blunt force trauma to the abdomen, a cut pancreas, and other abuse. The defendants say the girl died accidentally by choking on a piece of chicken and that she was further injured during CPR. The victim's great-grandmother recalled conversations with the victim's sister about what some people might consider to be abuse. This testimony mirrors other testimony we've heard from others.
Let's talk about some of the things that Millie told you. What did she tell you? What are some of the things she told you about her time living with the Rosenbaum?
She related that when she would sometimes get spankings with a belt. And I said, "Why didn't you tell your Nana?" She said, "Because Jennifer told me if I told you about the spankings, I'd get worse spankings." She at one time mentioned, well, she wouldn't eat certain foods from me. She wouldn't eat any kind of potato, baked or scalloped or mashed or otherwise. And I said, "Why? What's the matter with potatoes? You eat French fries?" And she said one time Jennifer had made her eat some nasty tasting potatoes and it made her sick and she threw it up, and then Jennifer made her eat the throw up. She said that Jennifer would grab them by the arm and twist. She said that she would knee them in the stomach, and she demonstrated it if I can do it without falling down. She went right in our tummies.
Defendant Jennifer Rosenbaum brought the victim to the doctor at one point with a fractured leg. The defendant claimed the injury happened while the girl was playing and then was exaggerated the next day playing gymnastics. But this next witness testified the victim never played gymnastics.
Okay, when I gave her the waiver and I asked her to fill it out, and then she didn't return it to me, so then I went out into the gym and asked her about it. She said she wasn't sure if she was going to take the class because she had been complaining of a hurt leg, and so she wasn't sure if she was going to take it. And I said, well, if she does the class and she goes on the floor, you have to give me that waiver. I have to have it. And so she said, okay. And then I just went back into the office.
And did you ever get that waiver back from her?
No.
Did you see the defendant, Jennifer Rosenbaum, after that class on the 19th?
No.
Okay.
Our panel is back to discuss this case tonight. So, Eklund Mercy, I got to ask you this question here. At one point, the defendants appeared to blame the foster child system for placing the child in their care. How is that in any way helpful? It was subtle, but they tried to do it yesterday.
It actually helped because you have a case manager who's supposed to see the child every week. You have the case manager, if they actually did visit the child, these wounds, these abrasions would have been noticed early, and then we would have had a hearing. We'd have told somebody would have testified to why she had the bruise on her stomach, to why she had the bruise on her leg. So I believe that putting the blame on the case manager is definitely a good little thing. I mean, will it be helpful? I don't think so, but it definitely a point.
In other words, it would have provided some evidence that maybe the defendant could have used in her favor in this case. So, Linda Kenny Bodden, if there are gymnastics injuries without gymnastics, are there also chicken chokings without chicken? I'm trying to follow the logic here.
We don't know where the chicken is, okay? And defense may say it got thrown away and therefore say that the state, stopped an argument from being made. But look, Aaron, you know that I'm married to a forensic pathologist, and you've met him, Michael Bodden, and I asked him about this. A little insight. He said, you need great force to transect or sever that pancreas, okay? And that's usually a stomping or a kick. And we just heard the grandmother, for the first time I heard the grandmother say that she would knee the kids. There you go. We start having the evidence.
Linda Kenny Bodden is making the state's closing argument here. Jessica Ramirez, I'm just hearing damning testimony coming from children, coming from statements other people are getting from children. I have to assign credibility to that because I don't think that a sister would necessarily be lying about what happened to her in the care of these defendants.
I think even if we took the sister's testimony away, I think there's so much evidence here. There's so much collaboration. There's doctors that are seeing the child before the child died, and there's red flags. So even with her testimony or not, I think there's a lot here.
Exactly. I agree with this. We've got a couple of strong cases for the state. That's my opinion. I see people nodding in agreement. Sometimes we don't have that, but that's what we have this time. Thanks to the panel. Thanks to those of you watching the debrief. Our live trial coverage will resume at 9 o'clock in the morning. The debrief back at 5. Have a good night.